If you ever stared at the blank canvas and didn't know where to start, that's usually not a lack of ideas, but rather the lack of structure. That's why in this video I want to share with you 3 easy composition frameworks that work perfectly for abstract art. But before we dive into it, hey, my name is Esther Franchuk. I'm an abstract painter, artist, traveler, creator, lover of beautiful things, and I make videos about everything around my art studio, tips for artists and collectors, and so much more. So if you are new to this channel, make sure to subscribe and hit notification bell so you will not miss any of the new videos. So we're gonna get straight into painting in less than 30 seconds, but before that I just really briefly want to touch on why do you even need a composition or a framework. You don't need a rigid formula, but you do need some kind of anchor, a layout, a visual plan. This what will help your painting to hold together when everything else will stay intuitive and expressive. Those 3 structures I'm going to show you today are the ones I keep returning over and over again, especially when I don't know where to begin. So let's dive into it. So the first concept I want to talk today about is depth, and depth in general is not necessarily a principle of composition. It's basically the relationship in between the different shifts in the painting. If you think of abstraction or any type of artwork in terms of it has foreground, middle ground and background, so those 3, of course creating more levels of depth, creating more planes is always beneficial, but I also use depth as a compositional structure in some way in order to build different points of interest in a piece. So I'm gonna use this brush because I really love it. I have 3 craft papers taped in here just for exercises. They're approximately 16 by 22, so but any paper 2 by 3 works. If you want to follow along and create them with me, you are welcome to. I chose just a basic solution of different whites and grays, and I have a black acrylic, a black primer, actually acrylic primer as my black, but you can just use black paint, and maybe I will try the other 2 in color or even layer color on top, but we will see. I'm working on the vertical format, and I just thought I'm gonna add a little bit of white first to the top layer in order for it to be just a little bit lighter. Somehow it's not dark enough because it's still wet. So I'm adding my painting brain.
You're adding.
I'm adding. I have really hard time talking and painting at the same time, and I haven't really done it much. So I'm just adding darker value, like that's gonna be my, so to say, mid-ground. It helps when you work with abstract art, think almost in terms of some abstracted imagery. So when I work with this composition, I'm trying to think if this would be, let's say, a landscape. Landscape always have multiple levels of depth, so when you work with abstract in order to create depth, it's really helpful to think in terms of a landscape and imagine like a cityscape or seascape or anything really landscape-wise that you can think about. It just really gives you those planes without overthinking composition. So this depth concept gonna really improve your compositional skills. You can also call it like layered planes or something, because you are layering different planes. You're like looking deep into the forest and seeing like trees on the front, then the middle trees that are further away from you, and then the very back that is blending in and like really light. It also called sometimes the air perspective. So if you would think in terms of representational art, this would be simply called air perspective, because everything that is in front of you is going to be darker, more intense, and just really loaded with pigment. You would see it more clearly. They're going to be like more details and refinement, and everything that is kind of sitting back is gonna be lighter in value and almost disappear on the horizon. It's good to have also some supporting anchor, and also what is important composition wise in general, really keep it asymmetrical, unless symmetry is something that you intentionally are going for. So you can see these three basic planes already giving like a really good movement and composition for the piece, and the way you arrange them is really up to you. It's good to have the compositional center somewhere according to the rule of thirds, so it could be here or there. I think like is another good spot, and then you can just like, this is a base, but then within it, the more layers of depth you're going to build, the more rich your abstract work gonna look like. And again, this is just a really simple scheme, but as you build your like actual painting, you would add way more different colors and pigments and levels to it. Mark making and different brush strokes that is gonna give like it more mood and style according to what you're trying to say with your piece. You can create it more in terms of, like, for example, here's the focal point and then everything is kind of circular, or you can make it really graphic and static. You can create more dynamic if you just change the movement and make more diagonal lines, so to say. So it's really up to you. This is just a really basic approach to this layered planes composition or depth composition that is, I believe, a really good starting point to start an abstract painting. For compositional principle number 2, we're going to change colors a little bit. I'm going to have pink, magenta, a little bit of yellow and white, and burnt sienna to make it a little bit on the warm, cheerful, brightful side. So the principle itself, I like it a lot because it helps me to just really get loose and free in the beginning. It's called overlapping of shapes, and this is basically choosing some kind of shape. I like personally natural shapes, so like not quite circle, not quite the square, something in between those like interesting organic shape, and then just layering lots of them. So when I start, I try not to be like locked into where they are and just be open for changing direction. Now feeling more like oval. So I might have way too many in the beginning, but that's how I'm actually finding the ones that I'm gonna keep, because right away I don't know which one's gonna work and which ones are not. So I'm just playing around. Then, as I have some dynamic going on that I like, which this is kind of what I like, I look for the outline of the edges. And you don't have to like stick to the shapes itself as you progressing, like as you building up your piece, but this really helps you to find those anchors to hold your composition together. So as you see, I'm just filling up with color, some in between gaps and shapes that kind of appeared from overlapping different shapes and painting in between them. Starting with composition is really important in my opinion, because you have still a lot of freedom to work, and it's really impressive and intuitive how you work, but in the same time you have this initial layout that could be also pretty intuitive. You are working with elements of art and principles of art, principles of composition, and over time it really becomes even more intuitive. But starting with structure definitely just saves you from wrestling with your painting too much, and it also leads to way more intentional use of negative space. So I want to just add some green to see how it blends. Talking about complementary color palette.
It lands.
Definitely lands. If you start with like color first, without any idea, any point of reference, any compositional principle in mind, it's really easy to get lost and just don't make the best choices and just end with really random painting that doesn't have a flow to it, doesn't have interest, doesn't have fluidity. It just really so it doesn't have fluidity, doesn't have contrast, just a lot of paints thrown on the canvas in a very random order that is gonna be showing through if your choices are not intentional. Good composition though, as a basis of all good art, gonna show through. Good or bad composition gonna show through. Yeah, so then, like with everything else, you can add some mark making, you can build more interest to your piece with layers, and just composition also something that gonna improve as you work on it and throughout the painting. But it is really helpful to have this initial structure figured out. So I think this is pretty good for this principle, and we can move to the next. Another compositional principle or framework that I want to show you is basically taking imagery and cropping. So I would call it cropped or cropped shapes, as you like. So I gonna have this vase, my friend vase, as a reference. I found it really that abstract art, even though it's non-objective, it's really way more sophisticated if it starts from some kind of imagery. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions about abstract art that it's random, it's not intentional, there's no base, there is no structure to it, and that's why I'm talking so much and advocating for composition so much, because composition is base of everything, is the really essence and backbone of every good painting. And one of the ways how composition, good composition in abstract art starting is actually deconstructing reality, like taking real objects, real shapes, and just translating them with a little bit different visual language. So I'm using this vase as a reference. I really love it. I'm gonna start by just kind of mapping out And it really doesn't have to be exact, because it's just a starting point for something abstract. Anyway. This vase has so much character, it almost looks like, I think it made in a way that it's a female's chest or something. So I really have no idea how it looks on camera, but over here it has to be a little bit more of level. So this is the initial reference, and as I'm want to turn it into, let's say, some interesting composition, maybe if I would, do we have an apple? Or something like this? It would be good to have an apple. We can imagine that there's something in front. I feel like still life is my favorite way to deconstruct reality, just like paint something ordinary from the kitchen table and then try to think of a composition like based or inspired by it.
We have Julie's ball. We could have a baguette also.
Can we have a baguette?
A ball and a baguette.
I should have been more prepared and put an aesthetic still life, but now we're gonna have Julie's ball.
Who's Julie then? You have to introduce.
Julie is my studio assistant, a long-haired dachshund that is really sweet and cute and kind of judgmental when it gets to filming. So today she's not with us, and it's good because she's gonna be freaking out of me using her toys. For a reference, she usually really confused when we're filming in general. It's like the most boring thing for her ever. I don't think actually baguette fits, but maybe for some other composition. But ball is fine. I like that it has this kind of sections. Well, anyway, this is just limitless possibilities when you're looking for the reference. Like everything could be art, and then there's like this really nice horizon line over there. There's some painting standing there creating other more like static situation, but in the same time with all of the straight lines it kind of a dynamic composition. Anyway, when you deconstruct in reality, you have the initial reference, and then you can turn it into basically anything. One of the easiest way is just cropping things. For example, I imagine this part as a sophisticated composition. Let's say. So you will have something going on here. You're gonna have this interesting dynamic, then something here. It's good if you watch that it's not too similar, so something has to happen over here. And then you build on top of it, or you really just look at this side the same, but you're like highlighting this area, and you have this and this edge, then something going on over here. And you play with this, and then you have this as a negative space, and maybe you can add then something on the side. So cropping bigger imagery into segments is what's gonna give you a huge variety of different compositional solutions that you can further work on. And this is just super easy, super beginner friendly, and it does not require a lot of imagination, which is another misconception about abstract art, that you have to be just genius and create something out of nothing. And this is just never a case with art, and even with abstract art, because good abstract art builds on a strong foundation of representational art, and this is just a really simple breakdown of how it works. Another thing that you can do is also try looking at this thing from the top, like aerial view. It's gonna completely change the whole narrative of composition, and you will just see way like completely different plane shifts, so to say. Here it stands on the tiles, so it gives a different dynamic. And this is a whole another compositional framework. So everything genius is simple. Now I just wanna actually choose the one that I'm gonna paint, and actually I think I like the aerial view the most. So I'm gonna take it as a reference and create the last color study of this principle. So I'm gonna use the aerial view actually, but I'm gonna crop it even extra to create even more interest. So you see, this is just a part of the vase. It would normally go through the edge. So that's the principle of cropped composition. to make it a bit more balanced, I believe. Need something a little bit different for this piece, but I don't know what. This one is not here. This one was just missing a little bit of additional movement. I think it also needs something more dark here. And of course it's only the first step, because you have to add and rotate and think of the value scale, darks and light, and everything in between, because good composition is a combination of multiple factors, but having a compositional principle in mind just really helps you to have a more successful beginning, because you are not trying to make something out of nothing, as I said, but you are having initial structure, having some kind of point of reference, even though it might seem like you don't, but it really benefits the whole painting overall. Actually, I feel like on the square it would work a lot more, just way better. But because I changed the format and cropped it in a different way, it started needing additional elements, so to say. You might also want to break the shapes that you created, because sometimes when you work they might look just too much as those circles, apples, pots. So what you can do is just really using mark making or also just brush, just really break this flow and create different anchors in your composition. Just really drag some brush strokes through, just to really get rid of those really definite shapes that are just looking like something specific. No, you're not in a rush?
So.
So as you keep working, you will just keep changing, abstracting, and really looking for this perfect composition that you are satisfied with and that just looks balanced and intentional. So I think this one is good for where it is, all of them have a potential to be a really good full-scale paintings if I would take them and develop them further. I believe though it gives a really good understanding of how to work with composition and abstract art. And what I love about composition, that there is just countless ways to go about it. There is no horizon inside, there is no limits of how deep and wide you can go about it, and how many ways you can create successful paintings based on compositional principles. So that's why in my painting course, Confident Abstract, I show you 18 of my favorite go-to compositional principles that I found out work perfectly for abstract art. I show you all 18, but 9 of them we actually start from scratch. We start with pencil sketch and then we develop them in monochromatic solutions, so tonal values, and then 3 of them we choose to develop further in color, layering color palette on top of the monochromatic solution, which gives you both structure and the base for the backbone of your painting, and then layering color on top really makes it sing. But not just that, but also it has different exercises on color stories. I teach how to choose a successful color palette, how to create color palettes, how to work with color, how color speaks in abstract art, and so much more. But this is just the first model, because we take it even further and we create together from the beginning touches and initial inspiration to the very final brushstrokes, 3 full-scale abstract paintings, different sizes, different orientation, square, vertical and horizontal, so different ways to go about creating a painting, and then also different color stories and different compositional solutions to them. But it's not a time lapse, it's not just a speed up of my process. There's everything recorded, every brushstrokes, every decision, everything I think about as I create the painting. So all of my thought process and decision making, which I believe is really unique and valuable angle and just viewpoint into my studio. I believe it's one of the greatest ways to learn from someone, is to learn from the working artist, from its studio, from its highlights and lowlights and mistakes, and everything in between is recorded. You're basically with me in the studio, going decision after decision, layer after layer, bringing this colorful mess into a really beautiful, sophisticated paintings. And I don't want to just myself talk about how great my course is, but I just want to give you a couple reviews, what other artists are saying about the videos. So Brita is saying, "Hi Esther, just wanted to say thank you for your terrific videos. I'm in the midst of taking your course and it's amazing. I have taken many online art courses over the years, and yours is so unique and valuable. I'm learning a ton about composition and color. Your techniques are very original and inspiring. I'm having a blast and just bought my first big canvas. Can't wait to get to work." Grynet is also saying, "I bought your course the day it came out and I love it. Just through the first module, but I have learned so much and it's worth every cent already. And I have still 2 modules to go. So many things make more sense to me now, and I feel you give a really good foundation for working with abstract, which I love." And those are just a couple of the reviews that I received so far from people taking the course, and there's just so much more. I'm got overwhelmed by the feedback and all of the warm words that I received, because I couldn't even imagine when I was creating this course that they're gonna help so many artists and so many people would find it helpful and inspiring for their own process. So if you're interested in diving deeper into abstract art, whether you're a beginner, complete beginner, or you're an advanced painter and you already have some experience with it, I believe it's gonna be really beneficial for you. Make sure to click the link in the description box down below where you can find all of the information about it. And I also want to mention, because this course has been so successful so far, I'm planning of adding more content to it, even more exercises and even more painting processes on different formats with different approaches and techniques, which will come with an increase of its price. The best time to get in is right now, because if you will get right now into the course, you will get all of the future updates for free. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did like it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I share way more of my process, different exercises and tools for artists and collectors. Also, please comment if you use any of these compositional principles before, if they're familiar to you or not, if you learned something new. Always love reading your guys' comments, and it helps me to make this channel better. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Oh.
Epic.